It was a cold October morning in 2024 when Marcus Rodriguez, a telecommunications technician for Verizon, received what seemed like a routine call to investigate unusual radio interference reported along a remote stretch of Route 66 near Flagstaff, Arizona. After 20 years in the field, Marcus thought he'd seen everything, from improvised antennas to illegal equipment disrupting official communications. But what he was about to discover that day at mile marker 247 on the legendary Mother Road would forever change his understanding of reality. Driving his service truck along the iconic highway, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that something was different about this particular call. The report had come from multiple sources: long-haul truckers, local residents, even the Arizona Highway Patrol themselves, all describing the same phenomenon, a powerful radio signal that seemed to broadcast from somewhere in the high desert scrubland, transmitting what sounded like police communications but in patterns and frequencies that nobody could identify. The area Marcus was heading to had a dark history that stretched beyond this recent incident. It was exactly at this section of Route 66 where, 9 years earlier in November 2015, Officer Jake Thompson of the Arizona Highway Patrol had vanished under completely inexplicable circumstances. Jake was a 15-year veteran known for his impeccable professionalism and his intimate knowledge of every mile of highway in Coconino County. The night of his disappearance, Jake had been patrolling alone on his usual sector between Flagstaff and Winona, a stretch of road notorious for severe accidents due to challenging weather conditions during Arizona's winter months. It was a night with a fierce sandstorm. Visibility was nearly zero and temperatures had dropped to near freezing, unusual for the high desert. His last radio communication had been at 11:47 p.m., when he reported checking on an abandoned vehicle at mile marker 247. "Dispatch, this is Thompson. Found an abandoned sedan on the shoulder near marker 247. License plates appear to be covered with dust. Going to check the situation," had been his final message. After that, his radio went completely silent. When Jake failed to respond to repeated calls from dispatch and didn't return at the end of his shift, alarms began to sound. A search team composed of state troopers, county sheriff's deputies, and civilian volunteers began combing the area around mile marker 247. What they found chilled everyone to the bone. Jake's patrol car was there, perfectly parked on the shoulder with the engine still running and emergency lights functioning. The driver's door was open, and inside everything appeared normal. Paperwork in order, equipment in place. Even the coffee in his thermos was still warm, but there was no trace of Jake. The sand around the car was undisturbed, with no footprints that should have existed if he had gotten out and walked anywhere. The most baffling aspect of the scene was the complete absence of the abandoned vehicle Jake had reported. There were no tire tracks in the sand, no evidence that any other vehicle had ever been present at that location. It was as if Jake had reported something that had never existed. The investigations that followed lasted for months. The Arizona Department of Public Safety, along with FBI specialists from Phoenix, analyzed every aspect of the disappearance. Radio recordings were examined dozens of times, every second dissected for clues. The area was searched with bloodhounds, metal detectors, and even ground-penetrating radar equipment, but they found absolutely nothing. The most bizarre discovery came the day after the disappearance. Jake's portable radio, which should have been on his duty belt, was found embedded in a Joshua tree approximately 100 yards from his patrol car, stuck in the trunk at a height of nearly 15 feet. No one could explain how it got there, especially since there were no footprints in the sand indicating anyone had climbed the tree. But the most disturbing thing about the radio was its condition. Rather than simply being stuck in the tree, the device appeared to have grown from the wood, as if the Joshua tree had swallowed it and then partially expelled it. The radio's metal components seemed to merge organically with the tree's bark in a way that appeared to defy known laws of physics. Earl Thompson, Jake's father, and a retired electronics engineer who had worked at the Lowell Observatory in Flagstaff, was the first to notice something truly abnormal about the radio. Coming to visit his devastated family a week after the disappearance, Earl had brought with him a portable radio scanner, hoping to pick up any communications that might offer clues about his son's fate. To his surprise, his scanner picked up a weak but constant signal that seemed to originate from the direction of the Joshua tree where Jake's radio had been found. It wasn't intelligible words, but rather a complex sequence of tones and frequencies that repeated in patterns that seemed to have an internal logic, like an extremely sophisticated form of Morse code. In the years that followed, Earl became obsessed with these mysterious transmissions. He set up a real amateur radio laboratory in his backyard in Flagstaff, complete with directional antennas and state-of-the-art recording equipment. Night after night, he monitored the frequencies, recording hours of these cryptic signals, trying to decipher a pattern, a logic, anything that might explain what had happened to Jake. Gradually, Earl began to notice that the signals were not random. They followed complex patterns that changed based on weather conditions, lunar cycles, and even solar activity. During periods of high electromagnetic activity, solar flares, geomagnetic storms, the transmissions became more intense and more structured. It was as if whatever was generating these signals was somehow responsive to cosmic influences. Jake's family had gradually stopped talking about his disappearance. His wife Sarah had remarried after 3 years, moving to Phoenix with her new family. His colleagues in the highway patrol occasionally mentioned him, but the official case had been closed as disappearance under unknown circumstances, with no prospects for resolution. Only Earl continued his solitary vigil, convinced that answers lay somewhere in those mysterious signals. In the summer of 2019, 4 years after the disappearance, Earl made a discovery that left him speechless. Analyzing his recordings with specialized pattern recognition software, he identified sequences that repeated in transmissions at regular intervals. Even more remarkable, these sequences seemed to correspond to codes used by the highway patrol identification numbers, codes for different types of incidents, even GPS coordinates transformed into an audio format. It was as if someone or something was trying to communicate using Jake's professional vocabulary, transforming the technical language of a highway patrol officer into a cosmic dialect of incredible complexity. Earl sent these discoveries to the National Institute of Standards and Technology in Colorado, but the response was a polite rejection. The phenomenon was scientifically interesting, but didn't fall within the Institute's research priorities. Now, in October 2024, when Marcus Rodriguez from Verizon arrived in the area to investigate these same radio interferences, the situation was changing dramatically. The new reports no longer spoke of vague, hard-to-detect signals. Drivers and local residents described clear, powerful transmissions that interrupted normal radio communications and even interfered with vehicle GPS systems. Using his signal detection equipment, Marcus quickly traced the source of the transmissions to the same area where Jake's radio had been found 9 years earlier. But when he reached the Joshua Tree, what he saw shocked him profoundly. The radio was no longer simply embedded in the trunk. In the 9 years since its discovery, the device had undergone a transformation that seemed to thoroughly defy all known laws of science. The radio's metal had spread throughout the entire tree like a network of silver filaments, branching through the bark and growing upward through the branches like an organic vascular system. The most spectacular transformation was at the top of the tree, where the radio's original antenna had developed into a complex crystalline structure that resembled a futuristic artistic sculpture more than any known technology. The structure emitted a faint, iridescent light that fluctuated in patterns that seemed to correspond with the pulse of radio transmissions. It was as if the entire tree had become a living antenna, a biological technological interface that defied any existing scientific category. Marcus pulled out his measurement equipment and began analyzing the signals emanating from this hybrid structure. What he found confirmed all his fears and exceeded all his expectations. The power of the transmissions was enormous, dozens of times greater than anything Jake's original radio would have been capable of. But more importantly, the structure wasn't just transmitting. It was receiving and processing signals from sources that appeared to be far beyond Earth. Marcus's measurements indicated that the antenna tree was capturing and retransmitting signals from cosmic space, but not from just any areas of space. The frequencies and patterns of the signals suggested that the communications originated from specific star systems, particularly from the constellation Cassiopeia, at a distance of approximately 50 light-years from Earth. Realizing the magnitude of his discovery, Marcus immediately contacted his supervisor at Verizon, and within hours the area had been cordoned off with security tape. That evening, a team of specialists from Los Alamos National Laboratory in New Mexico arrived on scene to begin detailed studies. Dr. Jennifer Chen, head of the experimental astrophysics department at the lab, was one of the few people in the United States qualified to understand the complexity of the phenomenon they were facing. With 2 decades of experience studying cosmic communications and anomalous electromagnetic phenomena, she had been called in to lead the scientific investigation of what the media was beginning to call the Thompson antenna, Dr. Chen's initial analyses revealed that the structure was not just a modified radio. Spectroscopic analysis of the metal showed that it had undergone transformations at the atomic level, developing properties that didn't exist in any known terrestrial material. Even more extraordinary, the metallic fibers that had spread through the tree contained traces of elements that didn't appear in the standard periodic table, isotopes with atomic numbers that theoretically shouldn't exist in stable form. What we're seeing here, Dr. Chen explained at a press conference organized just days after the discovery, appears to be the first documented example of hybrid biological extraterrestrial technology. The structure uses the tree's natural biological processes as an interface for communications that exceed humanity's current technological capabilities. But the most shocking discovery was yet to come, when the research team managed to decode and understand part of the transmissions emanating from the structure. Using advanced cryptology algorithms and pattern recognition, they had succeeded in identifying sequences that contained specific information about Jake Thompson, his full name, his badge number from the highway patrol, even personal memories he had shared with his wife over the years. It was as if whatever force or intelligence had taken over Jake's radio had not only studied him personally, but continued to transmit aspects of his personality and memories to destinations outside our solar system. In essence, Jake hadn't disappeared. He had been converted into pure information and transmitted to civilizations in other star systems. Dr. Michael Stevens, a psychologist specializing in anomalous phenomena from UCLA, brought a unique perspective to the investigation. The patterns we observe in the transmissions, he explained, aren't just technical data. They contain emotional elements, thought patterns, even aesthetic preferences that seem to correspond with the personality that family and colleagues described for Jake. It's as if his consciousness has been encoded and included in these cosmic communications. Realizing the implications of this theory, the research team made the decision to attempt bidirectional communication with the structure. Using high-power transmission equipment, they began sending signals to the antenna in patterns similar to those they were receiving. After several days of attempts, the response came in the form of a sequence of signals that, once decoded, contained a message in perfectly intelligible English. "I'm fine. Don't worry. I found a bigger purpose. Still transmitting. Jake." The message had been followed by precise coordinates for several star systems and detailed instructions for building interstellar communication technology based on biological principles similar to those observed in the antenna tree. It was as if Jake, or whatever he had become, was offering humanity a roadmap for communicating with extraterrestrial civilizations. News of Jake's message spread rapidly throughout the United States and then around the world. The Route 66 area where the antenna was located became a pilgrimage site for scientists, UFO enthusiasts, and ordinary people seeking answers to fundamental questions about humanity's place in the cosmos. The U.S. government declared the area a scientific reserve and established a permanent research station for continuous monitoring of the phenomenon. In the months that followed, the international team of researchers that formed around the Thompson antenna developed a new understanding of how consciousness, information, and interstellar communication might function. The structure appeared to be not just a means of communication, but a translator between fundamentally different forms of terrestrial and extraterrestrial intelligence. Dr. Elena Kowalski, an astrobiologist from MIT who joined the team, expressed her fascination. "What we're seeing here challenges all our assumptions about the nature of intelligent communication. Jake Thompson has become, in essence, humanity's first ambassador to other stellar civilizations, a bridge between human consciousness and forms of cosmic intelligence we're only beginning to understand." As month followed month, transmissions from the antenna became increasingly sophisticated and rich in information. Jake, or the entity he had become, was transmitting not just personal data, but also scientific observations about the civilizations he was in contact with, descriptions of extraterrestrial technologies, and even translations of cosmic languages into English. One of the most important messages came in March 2024. The Cassiopeia Confederation invites you to join the Galactic Communications Network. The first step is building multiple antenna trees on Earth. Instructions follow. Humanity is ready for the next level. Jake. That message had been followed by detailed blueprints for replicating the process by which Jake's radio had transformed into the hybrid antenna. The instructions indicated specific tree species, exact radio frequencies, and even optimal astronomical conditions for initiating the transformation. It was as if Jake was providing a user manual for evolution to the next level of cosmic civilization. Governments around the world responded with a combination of cautious enthusiasm and concern. An international consortium was formed to study and potentially implement Thompson technology, as it became known in scientific circles worldwide. The first replica antenna tree was constructed in the Mojave Desert in California, followed by 6 other locations on different continents. The results were spectacular. Each new antenna tree not only replicated the original communications, but also added new dimensions to the cosmic communications network. Earth was rapidly becoming an important node in what appeared to be a vast galactic network of intelligent civilizations communicating through hybrid, biological technological means. Earl Thompson, the elderly man who had first monitored Jake's radio signals, became something of a celebrity in scientific circles. His 9 years of recordings were studied as the first documentation of a cosmic transformation process. Now 80 years old, he continued working with the international team, translating and interpreting the early signals he had captured before anyone understood their significance. "I always thought Jake was trying to tell us something," Earl reflected in an interview. "I never imagined he had become the bridge to the entire cosmos, but when I think about him, how dedicated he was to his job, how much he cared about keeping people safe on our highways, it makes perfect sense that he would continue protecting and guiding his people, even from such a distance." Sarah, Jake's former wife, came to visit the antenna from time to time. Remarried and with a new family, she found peace in the idea that her husband hadn't died, but had found a way to continue serving in a much grander way than she had ever imagined. During one of her visits, she left a letter at the base of the tree, and the next day the research team captured a message that was clearly addressed to her. "Sarah, I'm proud of your new family. The kids are beautiful. I love you and will always love you. Just now from the entire universe. Jake." The impact of the Thompson phenomenon on the United States had been transformative. The country became the world center for cosmic communications research and hybrid biological extraterrestrial technologies. Universities from around the world opened branches in Arizona to study the phenomenon, and the national economy benefited enormously from scientific tourism and research investments. But the most profound change was in Americans' perspective on their own place in the cosmos. Instead of seeing themselves as a nation dealing with earthly political and economic challenges, Americans began to consider themselves pioneers of a new era in interstellar communication. Jake Thompson became a national hero, and November 15th, the date of his disappearance, was declared Cosmic Communications Day. In schools and universities, children learned about cosmic patriot Jake Thompson, alongside traditional American heroes. His story became a symbol of how individual dedication and service could transcend earthly limitations and contribute to the advancement of all humanity. On the first anniversary of the discovery of the radio's transformation, an official ceremony was organized at the site. The President of the United States, alongside representatives from NASA, SETI, and other international space agencies, gathered to honor Jake's memory and celebrate the beginning of the galactic communications era. During the ceremony, the antenna emitted the longest and most complex message yet recorded. Decoded, the message contained a detailed map of our galaxy, indicating over 100 intelligent civilizations with which Earth could establish contact using antenna tree technology. It was Jake's final gift to his species, a treasure map of cosmic wonders waiting to be explored. "Today," announced the President in his speech, "we don't just remember the disappearance of a highway patrol officer. We celebrate the birth of humanity as a galactic species, guided by the sacrifice and dedication of one of our finest public servants." The final message of that day came directly from Jake, transmitted through all the antenna trees on Earth simultaneously. "My beloved America, thank you for never giving up on me. I now protect the highways of the entire galaxy. Watch out for each other until we meet again among the stars. Your cosmic guardian, Jake Thompson, Arizona Highway Patrol, badge number 1247. And so, on clear autumn mornings, when the sun rises over the high desert of Arizona and illuminates Route 66, as it stretches endlessly toward the horizon, the antenna tree at mile marker 247 continues to pulse with its iridescent light, transmitting and receiving messages between Earth and stars. It stands as a living monument to the power of public service to transcend earthly boundaries, proof that sometimes those who disappear are not lost to us, but find their way to a vastly larger purpose. Jake Thompson, the highway patrol officer who vanished on a November night to become America's first cosmic ambassador, remains on duty, protecting and guiding not just the traffic on a desert highway, but humanity's entire journey toward its destiny among the stars. His story reminds us that the greatest adventures often begin on the most ordinary roads, and that sometimes getting lost is just another way of finding your way home to the universe.